When the regime of Syria's former president, Bashar al-Assad, was overthrown, rebels stormed his palace and uncovered a treasure trove of secrets. Alongside the lavish luxuries the brutal dictator couldn't take with him, they found stacks of family photos, revealing shocking details about the Assad family. Some pictures show Bashar himself, half naked, sparking laughter across Syria as people mock his bizarre and twisted palace lifestyle. But the discoveries didn't stop there. New revelations about his brothers have also come to light. For example, take this photo from 1993. Bashar's older brother, Bassel, is shown riding a horse. But what will really surprise you is the woman standing next to him, Jordanian Princess Haya, the former wife of Dubai's ruler. What connected her to the Assad family? Stay tuned to the end of this video to uncover the most humiliating secrets hidden in the Assad family photos, secrets that will leave you stunned. On December 8, 2024, the regime of Bashar al-Assad finally fell. Assad had ruled Syria for 24 years. Before him, his father had ruled the country. In total, their regime stayed in power for nearly 50 years. But nothing lasts forever. When the end came, Bashar fled Syria in a hurry. He escaped to Russia with his wife and 3 children, where they were granted political asylum. Assad left so quickly that he only managed to take a couple of $1 billion stolen from his people. But many of his possessions were left behind in his palaces. After his escape, rebels stormed his palaces in Damascus and Aleppo. They believed the wealth inside belonged to the Syrian people and should be returned to them. What they found inside shocked everyone. The first thing that stood out was the insane luxury in which Assad and his family lived. When a CNN journalist entered the abandoned palace in Damascus, she was stunned by the sheer extravagance. Marble was everywhere. The ceilings were ornate and grand. The furniture was incredibly expensive. But the real surprise came when she entered the garage. Inside were dozens of luxury cars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and classic Cadillacs. The collection was massive, something even the Sultan of Brunei, one of the wealthiest royals in the world, might envy. It's unbelievable how Assad and his family accumulated such wealth while the people of Syria suffered. For nearly 14 years, the country endured a brutal civil war. Millions struggled to survive while Assad and his family lived like kings. Even more shocking than the luxury in Assad's palaces were the documents and family photo albums left behind. These discoveries completely shattered the image of Bashar al-Assad. Photos that had never been seen before came to light, and they showed a very different side of the former dictator. For 24 years, Assad built a reputation as a strict authoritarian leader. He presented himself as serious and powerful, always dressed in a business suit. Early in his rule, before the civil war began, Assad was a welcomed guest at international events. World leaders shook his hand, and he appeared polished and professional. Even after the civil war revealed Assad as a brutal dictator, his image remained consistent. The world only saw him in formal attire, carefully maintaining his appearance as a ruler. But the photos found in his abandoned palaces told a completely different story. The ones causing the most laughter in Syria are pictures of Assad half naked, wearing only underwear. One photo shows him shirtless with a young woman sitting on his head. The woman's identity remains unknown. She might be a relative or a friend. In another photo, Assad is standing in his underwear and a tank top in the kitchen. It's hard to recognize the usual dictator in a suit. Assad seemed to have a strange habit of frequently posing half naked. Many are now joking that this might reveal his bizarre and twisted preferences. He might have picked up this habit from his father, Hafez al-Assad, who ruled Syria for almost 30 years. Among the photos found in the palace, one of Hafez is posing in his underwear, showing off his muscles. The picture looks ridiculous, and many Syrians have found humor in it. So why did they do this? Perhaps it was a way for them to feel powerful and confident in their private lives, trying to show dominance even in the most personal settings. Or maybe it was simply a quirk, a need to show off in front of their close circle. Whatever the reason, these photos have stripped away the serious and polished image Assad tried to maintain for decades, exposing a side of him no one expected to see. One of the most talked about photos in Bashar al-Assad's palace shows him standing with some of his relatives. On the right side of the photo is his maternal cousin, Ihab Makhlouf. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary family picture, but one detail immediately catches everyone's attention. Ihab is wearing a t-shirt with Adolf Hitler on it. For most of the world, Hitler is remembered as one of history's greatest villains. He started the deadliest war of the 20th century, responsible for millions of innocent lives lost. So why would Ihab wear a shirt with his image? Was it meant as a joke, a fashion statement, or something more sinister? It's hard to say what Ihab was thinking. In some places, such shirts are sold as shock value items designed to provoke or attract attention. Maybe Ihab wore it without fully understanding how offensive it would look to the rest of the world. However, given the Assad family's history, the choice feels more symbolic than accidental. Like Hitler, Bashar al-Assad is widely seen as a ruthless dictator. His regime is responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people during Syria's civil war. Entire cities were bombed, and civilians were left to starve or flee their homes. Assad's actions brought unimaginable suffering to his country, just as Hitler's did to Europe. Could the t-shirt be a reflection of how Assad's family views themselves? Perhaps Ihab saw it as a way to show power or rebellion. Or maybe it was a darker statement, a sign of admiration for authoritarian rule and control. Whatever the reason, the photo paints a disturbing picture. It reminds us of the cruelty and destruction caused by the Assad regime. Wearing a shirt with Hitler's image, even as a joke, feels like a chilling parallel to the actions of Bashar al-Assad. Both men will be remembered in history for the pain they caused and the lives they destroyed. This seemingly casual image adds another layer of shame to an already dark legacy. The story of Ihab Makhlouf, Bashar al-Assad's cousin wearing the infamous Hitler t-shirt, ended in tragedy. On December 7, 2024, just a day before Damascus fell into the hands of the Syrian opposition, Ihab was shot and killed while trying to flee the city. He was traveling with his brother, Iyad Makhlouf, and others when he was ambushed. Iyad survived but was badly wounded. This was not an isolated incident. Many of Assad's relatives were left behind to face the wrath of the rebels. Bashar al-Assad, who had spent years assuring everyone that he would never leave Syria, was secretly planning his escape. While publicly declaring his loyalty to his country and vowing to fight to the end, Assad was making preparations to flee. Years before the regime's collapse, Assad had already bought nearly 20 luxurious apartments in Moscow. When the time came, he escaped to Russia with only his wife, Asma, and their 3 children. Everyone else, his uncles, cousins, and extended family, was abandoned to fend for themselves. This betrayal shocked many, even those loyal to him. For over 2 decades, Assad portrayed himself as a strong leader who would stand by his family and country. But when the moment of truth arrived, he saved only himself and his immediate family. His relatives, including Ihab and Iyad, were left behind, unprotected and vulnerable to the chaos that followed. It's hard not to see this as an act of ultimate cowardice. While Assad escaped to the safety and comfort of Moscow, many of his relatives paid the price for his actions. They believed in him, trusted him, and stayed by his side, only to be abandoned when they needed him most. This act of betrayal reveals a lot about Assad's character. He built his rule on fear and loyalty, demanding absolute obedience from those around him. Yet when his own survival was at stake, he chose to leave behind those who had supported him, sacrificing them to save himself. Bashar al-Assad's betrayal didn't stop with his cousins and extended family. He even abandoned his own younger brother, Maher Hafez al-Assad, who had been one of his closest allies and a key figure in Syria's military. Maher served the regime loyally until the very end. But when the rebels closed in on Damascus, Bashar left him to fend for himself. It seems Bashar believed Maher could manage his own escape. Perhaps he thought his brother's military expertise would be enough to save him. But instead of helping him, Bashar fled to Moscow with his wife and children, leaving Maher behind to face the rebels and the chaos that followed. After the regime's fall, rebels stormed Maher's abandoned palace and uncovered some shocking details. Beneath the palace, they found a massive network of tunnels that Maher had prepared for his escape. It appears the plan worked. Maher managed to flee. While his exact whereabouts are unknown, there are rumors that he escaped to Iraq by helicopter and possibly later flew to Moscow to join his older brother. One of the most surprising discoveries in Maher's palace was a stash of libido-enhancing drugs with a bold label claiming they release the stallion in you. This finding has only added to the growing scandal surrounding the Assad family. Maher al-Assad is widely regarded as the most ruthless member of the Assad family. He is held responsible for many war crimes committed during Syria's civil war. But his crimes didn't stop there. Maher also ran an underground laboratory that produced illegal substances, including drugs that were smuggled internationally. This illegal drug trade brought the regime nearly $2 billion a year, funding its war efforts. The scale of the operation was so vast that Syria became known as a narco state under the Assad regime. Bashar's abandonment of Maher, despite everything his brother did to support the regime, further exposes his selfishness. He left even his most loyal ally behind while escaping to safety, showing once again that Bashar's priority was always his own survival, no matter the cost to his family or his country. The Assad family's story is filled with power, betrayal, and tragedy, but one of its most dramatic chapters revolves around Bashar's older brother, Bassel al-Assad. Bassel was the golden child groomed to take over their father's position. He was charismatic and ambitious, and was seen as the natural successor to Hafez al-Assad. But fate had other plans. One of the newly discovered family photographs brings Bassel's life back into focus. In this picture, taken during an equestrian competition in 1993, Bassel is shown confidently riding a horse. But what makes this photo so intriguing is the person standing next to him. Princess Haya of Jordan, now famous as the runaway wife of Dubai's ruler, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. The presence of Princess Haya raises many questions. What was her connection to the Assad family in her youth? To find out the answer to this question, let's first learn the story of Bassel al-Assad, who was supposed to become the president of Syria. Bassel al-Assad was born into power and privilege as the eldest son of Hafez al-Assad, the long-reigning dictator of Syria. From an early age, it was clear that Bassel was being groomed to inherit his father's role. He was seen as the golden child destined to continue the Assad legacy. Despite the wealth and influence of the Assad family, life in their household was far from idyllic. Relationships within the family were strained, and the pressure of being part of a ruling dynasty weighed heavily on everyone. Bassel himself reflected on this in a rare and candid moment. "We saw father at home, but he was so busy that 3 days could go by without us exchanging a word with him. We never had breakfast or dinner together, and I don't remember ever having lunch together as a family, or maybe we only did once or twice when state affairs were involved. As a family, we used to spend a day or two in Latakia in the summer, but then too, he used to work in the office, and we didn't get to see much of him." These words reveal the emotional distance that defined the Assad family dynamic. Hafez al-Assad's commitment to consolidating and maintaining power left little room for nurturing close familial bonds. This lack of connection highlights the sacrifices to pursue absolute control, even in a wealthy and powerful household. Bassel's childhood and upbringing were focused on preparing him to rule. He was given the best education, immersed in politics, and encouraged to project strength and charisma. By his 20s, Bassel was already a rising star in Syria, earning a reputation as a skilled equestrian, a dedicated military officer, and a symbol of Syria's future. However, the weight of responsibility and his father's shadow loomed large over Bassel's life. While he appeared confident and capable in public, he likely carried the burden of high expectations privately. While Bassel al-Assad was being meticulously groomed to become the head of state, his younger brother Bashar lived a completely different life. Far from the political and military scene, Bashar was quietly studying ophthalmology in London, never imagining he would one day rule Syria. Looking at old photos of the two brothers, the differences between them are striking. Bassel exudes confidence and strength, appearing every bit the future leader in his military uniform. On the other hand, Bashar looks reserved and unassuming, a far cry from the image of a future dictator. Bassel often accompanied his father, Hafez al-Assad, on the international stage. He was introduced to global leaders and represented Syria in high-profile meetings. His frequent appearances in military attire highlighted his dedication to the armed forces and reinforced his image as a strong and capable leader. One of Bassel's most notable initiatives was his vigorous anti-corruption campaign. However, this move may have stirred resentment among the powerful elite in Syria, potentially setting the stage for conflict. Some speculate that his campaign, while popular among the people, could have made enemies who saw him as a threat to their interests, perhaps even contributing to his untimely death. Outside politics, Bassel had a personal life that hinted at his complexity. He was known to be close to the Jordanian royal family, particularly the children of King Hussein. One of his most famous connections was with Princess Haya of Jordan. Their shared passion for horse riding brought them together, and they often competed in equestrian events. In a 1993 photograph, Bassel and Princess Haya are seen together at a horse riding competition, radiating youth and ambition. Their friendship sparked rumors of a possible romance. At the time, Bassel was 30 and Haya was only 19, a young princess who may have admired the charismatic and accomplished heir to the Syrian presidency. Could their bond have blossomed into something more? It's entirely possible. Bassel was unmarried, and his charming and commanding presence could easily have attracted Princess Haya. For Haya, a romantic connection with someone like Bassel would have been exciting and new, especially considering their shared love of horses and competition. But the question remains, could their relationship have ever led to marriage? While such a union might have been personally fulfilling, political considerations would likely have complicated it. Syria and Jordan, while geographically close, had a history of tension, and a marriage between their royal families might have raised eyebrows or even caused political friction. On January 21, 1994, Bassel al-Assad's promising life was cut tragically short in a car accident. Early that morning, Bassel was driving his luxury Mercedes incredibly high speed through thick fog on his way to Damascus International Airport. He was heading to Frankfurt, Germany for a private flight to the Alps for a ski vacation. Bassel wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and when his car collided with a barrier, the impact was fatal. He died instantly. His cousin, Hafez Makhlouf, who was in the passenger seat, survived with injuries and was taken to the hospital. The chauffeur, sitting in the back seat, walked away unharmed. Bassel's body was taken to al-Assad University Hospital and later buried in a mausoleum in Kardaha, the Assad family's hometown. His father, Hafez al-Assad, was later buried in the same mausoleum. The entire country was plunged into mourning. Schools, shops, and government offices closed, and even the sale of alcohol was suspended as a sign of respect. The Syrian state elevated Bassel to an almost mythical status. He was declared the martyr of the country, the martyr of the nation, and the symbol for its youth. Squares, streets, hospitals, sports clubs, and even the military academy were named in his honor. The international airport in Latakia became Bassel al-Assad International Airport. His statues were erected in several Syrian cities, including an equestrian statue in Aleppo, reflecting his passion for horse riding. Even after his death, his image appeared on billboards alongside his father and younger brother. Bassel's death not only left a deep emotional void in the Assad family, but also changed the course of Syria's future. His younger brother Bashar, who was never prepared for a political role, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight, forever altering his own path and the country's. For many years after Bassel al-Assad's tragic death, Princess Haya of Jordan remained unmarried. Some believe this could be a sign that she was grieving the loss of her beloved. Though rarely discussed today, their rumored romance occasionally resurfaces in conversations about what might have been. Their connection, whether it was a close friendship or something more, has sparked speculation about how Syria's history might have unfolded differently if Bassel had lived and Haya had become his wife. With her royal background and international appeal, Princess Haya could have brought a new dynamic to the Assad family and perhaps even softened the regime's image on the global stage. However, these ideas remain just that, speculation. There is no concrete evidence to confirm the nature of their relationship or what could have come of it. Consequently, the truth of their bond will likely never be fully known. Still, the thought of a potential union between Bassel and Haya adds another layer of intrigue to the Assad family's story. It's a poignant reminder of how personal tragedies and political circumstances intertwine, shaping individuals' lives and entire nations' fate. The future of Syria remains uncertain. After years of devastating civil war and the fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime, the country is struggling to rebuild. Families displaced by violence are trying to return to their homes, and the scars of conflict run deep. What lies ahead for Syria is anyone's guess. Meanwhile, Bashar al-Assad and his wife Asma are living comfortably in exile, reportedly somewhere in Russia. Far from the ruins of the country he once ruled, Assad appears to be enjoying a luxurious lifestyle, supported by the vast wealth he managed to smuggle out of Syria. Reports reveal that Assad's regime secretly transferred enormous sums of cash to Russia in the final years of his rule. One striking example is the Syrian central bank airlifting $250 million in cash to Moscow. Trade data shows that between March 2018 and September 2019, 21 flights carried millions of dollars in $100 bills to Russia's Vnukovo airport. These transfers helped Assad sustain his regime and pay off debts to Moscow, even as ordinary Syrians faced extreme poverty and suffering. Assad can afford to maintain his extravagant lifestyle in exile with those millions safely in Russia. While Syria picks up the pieces, its former dictator has turned his back on the nation he once ruled, leaving its people to grapple with the consequences of his tyranny. The story of Bashar al-Assad's downfall is a stark reminder of how power, corruption, and greed can destroy a country. As Syria looks to the future, the world can only hope that its people will find peace and that justice will eventually be served. What surprised you the most in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories. Thank you for watching.